Greetings, esteemed viewers. I am Hosokawa Gaisha.
And I am Kato Kiyomasa, at your service.
On this auspicious occasion, I am delighted to be joined by Kiyomasa to delve into the fascinating history, types, and appreciation of Japanese swords.
Indeed, the sword is revered as the very essence of the samurai spirit. Its allure transcends mere sharpness and beauty, encompassing a profound tapestry of history, culture, and technological innovation.
Though I harbor a deep passion for swords, my knowledge remains limited. I eagerly anticipate embarking on this enlightening journey with Kiyomasa, and I trust that our viewers will find it equally enriching.
Over the course of this program, we shall explore the multifaceted world of Japanese swords from various perspectives, ranging from their historical origins and diverse types to the key points of appreciation.
I extend a warm invitation to all of you to join us on this captivating voyage into the heart of Japanese swordsmanship.
Without further ado, let us commence our exploration.
Would you be so kind as to enlighten us on the history of Japanese swords?
It is my pleasure. The history of Japanese swords is a long and storied one, dating back to the Kohan period. In those days, iron swords were rare and highly prized.
How were they made?
At that time, iron-making technology was not yet developed, so swords were not made using the current method of forging steel and iron together. Instead, they were made by directly hammering iron sand. This method is called tatala iron making, and was widely used from ancient times to the Middle Ages.
What kind of swords were made from the Nara period to the Heian period?
From the Nara period to the Heian period, the straight sword known as chokudo was the mainstream type. Chokudo have a straight blade and are double-edged. Famous examples include the Kinsakame Tekken and Shichiseiken from the Nara period.
How did swords change after that?
During the Kamakura period, sword-making techniques advanced, and swords with the characteristic curvature of the Japanese sword began to be made. Curved swords have the advantage of increased slashing power and easier drawing of the sword.
Why were curved swords made?
The Kamakura period was a time when mounted warfare flourished. Curved swords were easier to swing on horseback and were effective in cutting down enemies.
What kind of swords were made from the Muromachi period to the Edo period?
From the Muromachi period to the Edo period, sword-making techniques continued to develop, leading to the creation of a diverse range of swords. These varied in purpose and form, including the katana, wakizashi, and tanto.
Could you please elaborate on the different types?
The katana is the most common sword, worn by samurai at the waist. It can be further divided into the uchigatana and tachi, but we will delve into that later. The wakizashi is a shorter sword, often paired with the katana and worn together. The tanto is even shorter, serving as a self-defense weapon or a backup to the wakizashi.
How did swords evolve after the Meiji period?
The Meiji period saw the prohibition of sword ownership through the Sword Abolishment Edict. However, swords were later re-evaluated as an integral part of Japanese tradition and are now highly sought after for appreciation and collection.
It seems the history of Japanese swords is deeply intertwined with the history of Japan itself.
Indeed. The Japanese sword embodies the samurai spirit and serves as an icon of Japanese traditional culture. Now, let's explore the uchigatana and tachi that I mentioned earlier.
What are the key differences?
The tachi emerged in the late Heian period to the Kamakura period, a time dominated by mounted warfare. It was developed specifically for use on horseback and is forged from steel and iron. The tachi features a pronounced curvature and a longer blade, making it ideal for both battlefield and ceremonial purposes.
So cavalry used the tachi. What did the foot soldiers use?
While the tachi was designed for cavalry, foot soldiers also used it in practice. However, its high cost meant that it wasn't accessible to all infantry.
I see. And what about the uchigatana?
The uchigatana emerged during the late Kamakura period to the Muromachi period. As warfare shifted towards large-scale battles, foot soldiers became more prevalent. Consequently, there was a demand for swords that were lighter and more maneuverable than the tachi, which was designed for mounted combat.
How was the uchigatana crafted?
Similar to the tachi, the uchigatana is forged from steel and iron. However, it features a shallower curvature, a shorter blade, and a lighter weight compared to the tachi.
How did the uchigatana evolve during the Edo period?
With the decline of warfare in the Edo period, swords transitioned from practical tools to objects of appreciation. This was true for the uchigatana as well, with swords boasting beautiful amwan, blade patterns, and jigen, grain, becoming highly sought after.
I'm amazed by the distinct differences between the tachi and uchigatana. To summarize, the uchigatana is lighter, has a shallower curvature, and a shorter blade, while the tachi is slightly heavier, has a deeper curvature, and a longer blade.
That's correct. However, there's another key difference between the two.
What could that be?
It's the way they are worn. The tachi is worn on the left side of the waist with the blade facing down, while the uchigatana is worn on the left side of the waist with the blade facing up. Interestingly, both the tachi and uchigatana are worn on the left side because the dominant hand for drawing the sword was the right. Samurai were predominantly right-handed, and those born left-handed were forced to become right-handed.
They would have been highly valued as baseball players.
The only sport during that era was sumo. Speaking of which, there's an interesting story about wearing the sword on the left hip. Would you like to hear it?
I'm curious to know.
As a rule, samurai walked on the left side of the road. As I mentioned earlier, they carried their swords on their left hip. If they walked on the right side, their swords would clash with those of the oncoming samurai. This could lead to conflict, which is why they walked on the left. This practice has influenced modern Japanese traffic, where vehicles also drive on the left side.
So the reason why Japanese cars drive on the left is because of the samurai's custom. That's fascinating.
That's right. The Japanese people have inherited many traditions from the samurai. A sword is composed of various parts. Let's go through them one by one. Mune, the opposite side of the blade. Haobaki, the part that connects the blade to the hilt. Nikago, the part that fits into the hilt. Mikagana, a hole drilled through the nikago. The mikagi or peg is used to secure the blade to the hilt. Hamachi, the boundary between the blade and the nikago. Nikago jili, the tip of the nikago. Shinogi, the line that separates the blade from the mune. Kisaki, the tip of the sword. Boshi, the shape of the kisaki.
Do the materials and shapes of the different parts of a sword vary?
Yes, they do. The blade is often made of hard steel, while the mune is made of softer iron. Additionally, the blade has a curvature, and the kisaki is sharply pointed.
It seems that having a thorough understanding of the different parts of a sword is crucial for both sword appreciation and sword making.
That's right. By understanding the different parts of a sword, one can appreciate its beauty and functionality on a deeper level.
But who were the people who created such incredible objects?
There were many swordsmiths, but let me introduce you to some of the most famous ones. Sanjo Munechika was a swordsmith who was active from the Middle to the Late Heian period. He can be said to be the person who built the golden age of Japanese swords.
What kind of swords did he make?
Sanjo Munechika's swords are characterized by their elegant appearance and beautiful amon. In particular, the Mikazuki Munechika and the Kogi Maru are very famous as famous swords.
What kind of person was Sanjo Munechika?
Sanjo Munechika was called Sanjo Kokaji because he lived in Sanjo, Kyoto. There is also a legend that he received the blessing of the Inari deity and created famous swords.
How are Sanjo Munechika's swords evaluated today?
Many of Sanjo Munechika's swords are designated as national treasures or important cultural properties, and they are highly valued. He can be said to be one of the most popular swordsmiths among sword lovers. Masamune was a swordsmith who was active from the Middle to the Late Kamakura period. He is considered to be the greatest swordsmith in the history of Japanese swords.
What kind of swords did he make?
Masamune's swords are characterized by their beautiful jigen grain and distinct amon blade pattern. In particular, the Den Masamune and Satamune are very famous as famous swords. Additionally, Masamune's swords were favored by Kamakura samurai, and are therefore also called Kamakura samurai swords.
Which specific samurai used them?
Not only the three who focused their efforts on unifying the country: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, but even the emperor himself used them. Toyotomi Hideyoshi was particularly fond of Masamune's swords, and would give them to his vassals as rewards.
They were that beloved. They must have been truly magnificent swords. I would love to have one myself.
Many of his swords are designated as national treasures or important cultural properties, and they are highly valued. He can be said to be one of the most popular swordsmiths among sword lovers. Muramasa. Muramasa was a swordsmith of the Soshu tradition who is believed to have been active from the late Kamakura period to the Nanpoku-cho period. He is renowned as a master swordsmith on par with Masamune, yet his life remains shrouded in mystery.
What are the characteristics of Muramasa's swords?
Muramasa's swords are known for their exceptionally sharp blades and are sometimes referred to as cursed swords.
Why did they acquire this reputation?
There are various theories, but one of the most prominent involves Tokugawa Ieyasu.
Ieyasu?
During the Edo period, rumors spread that Muramasa's swords were cursed. Here are 5 reasons cited for this belief. 1. Ieyasu's grandfather, Matsudaira Ieyasu, was stabbed to death by a vassal using a Muramasa sword. 2. Ieyasu's father, Matsudaira Hirotada, was also stabbed by a vassal with a Muramasa sword and died from the wounds. 3. While Ieyasu was a hostage of the Imagawa clan, he injured his hand with a small knife that turned out to be a Muramasa. 4. Ieyasu's first wife, Tsukiyama Dono, and his eldest son, Matsudaira Nobuyasu, were ordered to commit seppuku by Oda Nobunaga. The Kaishiku ritual suicide assistant used a Muramasa sword for the act. 5. Ieyasu's formidable enemy, Sanada Yukimura, cherished a Muramasa sword as his favorite. Bringing misfortune to the Tokugawa family ironically became a convenient tool for those plotting against the Tokugawa shogunate. It is even said that anti-shogunate figures like Saigo Takamori actively sought out and possessed Muramasa swords.
I'm astounded by the deep connection between Tokugawa Ieyasu and Muramasa's swords.
Indeed. You mentioned earlier that you would like to have a Masamune sword. What about a Muramasa sword?
No thanks, I'm okay. Kiyomasa. When appreciating a Japanese sword, what are the key points to look for?
When appreciating a Japanese sword, it is good to focus on the following points. 1. Sagata. The shape and curvature of the blade. The width and thickness of the blade. The length and shape of the nakagotang. 2. Hamon. The pattern on the cutting edge of the blade. The type and shape of the hamon. The beauty of the hamon. 3. Mei. The inscription on the blade. The name of the swordsmith and the date of manufacture. The style and carving of the mei. 4. Koshilai. The hilt and scabbard of the sword. The materials and decorations. The harmony between the koshire and the blade.
Appreciating Japanese swords is truly a profound experience.
Indeed. A Japanese sword is not just a weapon, but also a work of art that can be enjoyed aesthetically. Have you ever heard of the term, Todo?
Todo? I'm familiar with kendo, but what's Todo?
Todo is a sport that involves using real swords to cut various objects. It's like a martial art, but with a focus on the art of cutting. Let me show you a video of an actual Todo competition. So, what do you think? That's Todo in action. The judges evaluate the competitors based on their cutting techniques and their posture, and award points accordingly.
That's incredible. I'd love to try to do myself.
If you're interested, I can teach you the basics next time we practice.
Really? That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
So, what did you think of this video?
I learned so much about the fascinating world of Japanese swords. I'm even thinking of buying one as a decorative piece.
That's a great idea. They can be beautiful and elegant additions to any home. In Japan, you can find high-quality replica swords for relatively affordable prices, so I definitely recommend checking them out. And everyone else watching, why not consider getting one for yourself as well? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up.